Hello. This is Eric from Bay Area Hang Gliding, doing another article. This one is titled Earn Your Advanced Rating. It's by Dave Wills. It's edited and illustrated by Greg Shaw. Couple Bay Area pilots, both big in the sport. So the previous article in this series led you through the observed task for your intermediate rating. You continued on to finish the exam and logged flight tasks. Having earned your intermediate rating, you have been enjoying new flying opportunities. Now you're ready to learn new flying skills and work toward an advanced rating. Let's discuss the observed tasks for the advanced rating. This article presents the skills those tasks require and how to demonstrate that you have those skills. We'll also look at where you might be performing the task in actual flying situations. You remember from our last article that the tasks require the sign-off of either a USHBA observer or USHGA, that's how old this article is, advanced instructor, and today all USHBA. In almost all cases, you must tell the observer you are going to demonstrate the task prior to doing it. In addition, the entire flight must be executed safely and under control, not just the task being demonstrated. If things start to go wrong, you will impress the observer with your judgment by disregarding the task rather than performing a dangerous maneuver. Hang 4 task, clearance during 360s. Even though you've been doing 360-degree turns for a while, let's briefly examine some critical requirements of this task. The purpose of this task is to show that you can do 360-degree turns in higher winds without running into something or somebody. You might face situations that require 360-degree turns while flying in thermal or ridge lift close to the hillside. You might also be doing them while flying below the mountaintop or ridge and trying to climb back up. When you perform this task, you'll be demonstrating refinements of intermediate skills you have demonstrated for the Hang 3 tasks. As wind speeds increase, your downwind drift increases. The need for precise control over airspeed, bank angle, and exact turn points in three-dimensional space become much more critical. Compression zones, turbulence, and thermals, in addition to higher winds, make 360-degree turns even more difficult. The task is very similar to the Hang 3 linked 180-degree turn task. Before you can perform this task, you and the observer must agree on a course. Pick a course that has 2 ground reference points, pylons, spaced far enough apart allow you to do at least 4 linked 180-degree turns around them. After completion of the task, you want to have at least 500 feet of altitude in order to have plenty of time to set up a safe landing. A line connecting the 2 pylons must be perpendicular to the wind direction, and the wind must be at least 10 miles per hour. This is shown in Figure 1. On the next page, please. Still need to get a stand. So Figure 8's accounting for drift. Wind over 10 miles an hour. The higher wind speed is the first difference than the Hang 3 task. The second difference is that your entry to the task is now into the wind from the downwind side between the pylons. This is shown as point A in the figure. The reason for this is that the turns around the pylon are performed using higher bank angles with smaller radius circles. The higher wind causes a much more pronounced downwind drift near the pylons. This makes the task much more challenging and requires a higher skill level. You must perform the 4 linked 180-degree turns without downwind drift to demonstrate the task. You demonstrate no downwind drift by maintaining constant radius turns around the pylon. To do this, you'll need to adjust your bank angle and turn rate during each turn. The crosswind legs should be straight lines. Once again, here's the figure. Overhead view, three-dimensional view. Hang 4 task, advanced landing accuracy. The Hang 4 landing task is very similar to the Hang 3 task. When you fly at more challenging sites, you'll be exposed to more challenging landing zones. The purpose of the Hang 4 task is to demonstrate further refinements of your landing skills. As you progress through your flying career, you'll probably have longer but fewer flights. As conditions get more challenging, you may be getting fewer opportunities to keep your landing skills at the sharp level you had as an advancing novice pilot. It's the observer's job to make sure you can land in more challenging conditions than in smaller LZs. The observer will be looking, or instructor will be looking for specific skills. You must demonstrate good planning skills for your approach and good flight path control throughout the pattern. You also must show complete control over your glider when winds are inconsistent and have significant convective or turbulent activity. Before reading more on this task, you might want to consider how to practice to improve your landing accuracy. Nearly all of us have a familiar landing field where we fly most often. Executing the same pattern flight after flight doesn't help improve our skills. In order to plan your landing spot by judging the glide angle of your glider, you need to vary your approach. This helps because it gets you out of the habit of using familiar landmarks as turn points on your approach. Consider doing a different approach each time you land in your favorite LZ. Now, let's get back to the task. If you perform your landing accuracy task in an LZ where winds are consistent with little convective or turbulent activity, you will be asked to land within 25 feet of a predetermined spot. Some sites always have inconsistent conditions and some convective or turbulent activity. In this case, the observer may allow you to do the aircraft approach landing accuracy task. Sorry, you don't have a choice. It's at the observer's discretion which task is used. Hardly anyone uses the aircraft approach. That's my little addition. And also the other thing is they changed it to the 3 spots are an average of within 25 feet. And they have to be at different spots and they have to be in intermediate conditions, which is also up to the discretion of the, he uses the word observer, but most of you are going to use an instructor. We work too. Let's review a few basic requirements of the task. The observer will require that your landings be in complete control before signing off the landing. What does this mean? Generally, no part of the control frame or the leading edge should touch the ground. It's normally okay if your keel hits the ground after a strong flare. It may be okay if you touch a wingtip after a flare. Whether or not you are under control is left entirely to the judgment of the observer. The observer may give you some leeway if you take a step or two when there's no wind and density altitude is high. But at sea level or when there is any headwind, you should be able to stop your glider with no steps. The Hang 4 landing task adds some new requirements. As with the Hang 3 landing task, your launch must be at least 200 feet above the LZ. In addition, your flight must have at least 2 turns and your entire flight must be at least 1 minute. Doing spot task. Doing the spot task is straightforward. Land within a 25-foot radius circle 3 times in a row. That's a 50-foot wide, 25 within 25 feet of a spot. You must declare each landing and the spot where you're going to land before your flight. A typical flight path is shown in figure 2. I'm not going to show that. That's a flight. So some guy flying down. Also note that when conditions are consistent, the observer will require that you may vary the location of the spot. And actually that is a requirement now. So it has to be 3 different spots. This was written in the year 2000, so I guess back then you could do the same spot. Moving the spot will demonstrate that you aren't using ground reference points other than the spot itself. So more comments from me. I prefer different spots at different sites and also a top landing. A top landing at 11 for all of us here in the Bay Area is totally reasonable, either the 150 or the 300. As you get better, you can top land the 600 or even the top on a soarable day, on the right soarable day. Okay, so here we go back to the article. If you miss a declared spot or land without complete control of your glider, the observer will take away all the previous spots and you'll have to start over. Note, the one saving grace is that you aren't required to declare a spot. Only your declared spot landings count toward the consecutive landing requirements. Feel free to get as many launch and landing practice flights as you need in between your declared spots. Another task is the aircraft approach task. This is called the aircraft approach task because it's similar to the landing approach used by airplanes and sailplanes. For this task, you need to land within 20 feet of a 200-foot long line that is parallel to the wind. Oh, this is the alternate task that no one uses. So, parallel, I thought it was a crosswind. The line is marked with an optimum landing spot, 100 feet upwind from this spot, and 100 feet downwind of this spot, as shown in figure 3. Wow, that's really small. It kind of has the figure 2 also of a flight path. So that's the alternate task. You land within 10 feet of a long line, and I thought it was a crosswind. This is showing straight into the wind. Maybe that's a different task. Again, you must declare each landing and the line marking where you're going to land before your flight. Unlike the spot task, your declared landings don't need to be consecutive to count, and you only need to do 2 landings within 20 feet of the line. But don't think this task lets you off easy. If you missed your second attempt, you can't retry the second landing until you've logged 10 additional landings. Hang 4 task, coordinated 360-degree turns. At this point in your flying career, your turns should be pretty efficient. Maximizing your lift and thermals requires you to continually adjust your 360-degree turns. You should be able to coordinate turns in both directions and at various bank angles and airspeeds. This is one of the easiest Hang 4 tasks to demonstrate. All you need to do is fly in circles. Fly slow, low bank angle circles, fast, high bank angle circles, and a few speeds and bank angles in between. Then turn around and do them in the other direction. Assuming that your turns are as efficient as expected of an advanced rated pilot, the observer will be ready to sign off this skill. Hang 4 task, advanced stalls. One very important point was made in the Hang 3 task article, and it needs to be repeated. Remember, capital letters, no full brake stalls. That's yelling nowadays. By this time in your flying career, you probably have performed many stalls and maybe even some full brake stalls. This task isn't about stalling the glider, but rather recognizing the onset of a stall condition and recovering from it. As with the Hang 3 stall task, this is one of the hardest tasks for the observer to measure. Without actually flying with you, the observer cannot see, feel, and hear what you see, feel, and hear. For the observer to demonstrate, to determine whether or not you have this skill, he or she will often request that you do this task in 2 parts. The first part of the task is to enter a stall condition during straight flight. The second part is to enter a stall condition while turning. To demonstrate the first part of the task, fly in a straight line. Slowly reduce your airspeed by first letting the base tube out and then slowly pushing out. You just want to go slow enough to create a stall condition on part of the wing. When this happens, you need to know everything there is to know about yourself and your glider. What is your angle of attack? What is the location of the base tube with respect to your body? Are there any other visual indications? This also includes what you feel from the glider. Can you continue to control it? Can you turn? Do you still feel the wind? Is the glider vibrating? And finally, this includes what you hear. How loud is the wind noise? Is the glider making any vibrating noises? The key to completing this part of the task is knowing the answers to these questions. First, show the observer that you've slowed the glider to a stalled condition. Then land and explain to the observer why the glider was stalled. The second part of the task is a little more complicated, but basically works the same way. Enter a 360-degree turn with a constant bank angle of between 20 and 30 degrees and make 1 full circle. This establishes the bank angle that you're going to use for the remainder of the task. Then reverse your turn direction and enter a 360-degree turn in the opposite direction, as shown in figure 4. After completing one full circle, begin to slowly increase your angle of attack until a stall occurs. Show glider control by recovering from the stall, then land. Tell the observer of the stall indications as above. I'll go to figure 4 now. Reversing 360s. Don't need to figure that much. You go one way, the other way. Remember, you want to have plenty of altitude at the completion of the stall task. Also, consider the wind conditions. You'll want to do the stalls in low wind conditions to prevent unwanted glider attitudes and make stall recovery easier. Hang 4 task. Soar above a low point. Nope, sorry, wrong. Missing it. Okay, so on this would be more maybe interactive ground school, but no almost hang 4s were ready. I didn't see anyone that signed on. So hang 4 task is this is a good one. Soar above a low point. Let's spend a little more time discussing what this task means. This isn't a test to see how low you can get and still survive. You won't need to demonstrate this task by scratching low above the ground or trees. Your altitude above the terrain has little to do with your ability to soar above a low point. So what is a low point? Simply stated, a low point is any point in your flight where you spend a significant amount of time at or near the same altitude and area with respect to a ground reference point. This could be above the mountaintop or below the mountaintop. It's easy to soar above a low point when the conditions are great and there's a lot of lift. This task requires that you have the skill to soar above this low point in light lift. Not only is this task easy to demonstrate, but you don't have to declare this task prior to performing it. The reason is simple. It's unlikely that you can accidentally perform the task. Even though you don't have to declare this prior to doing it, you still want to take care that the observer sees the task in order to sign off your logbook. A lot easier nowadays with video. Make sure you ask the observer to watch before you fly if you have radio contact while you're flying. Demonstration of the task is straightforward. Soar above a low point for at least 5 minutes, then have the observer sign off the task in your logbook. Do this a total of 3 times, and you're done. Cartoon soaring above a low point of a barbecue. Pilots make great lift. Pilots on the ground make great lift. Hang 4 task, altitude gain. The altitude gain task measures whether you can use thermal lift. Some advanced sites have very long L/D glide flight paths to available LZs. Unless you can gain a little altitude, you may not be able to make it safely to the LZ. The altitude gain task is another task that you don't have to declare prior to flying. Even if you stumble into a thermal, you still need thermaling skills to climb successfully. Again, make sure that the observer is watching. Demonstrate this task by climbing at least 500 feet in a single thermal. That's all there is to it. Conclusion. Well, you've done it. Complete your Hang 4 exam and logged flights requirements, and you're ready to be appointed as an advanced rated pilot. Congratulations, and see you in the air. So there's an advanced rating checklist. It says, be prepared to get your rating. Don't count on the observer to tell you what to do. Get the latest version of USHGA, USHBA Part 104 for an observer or instructor, or the USHGA HBA. Read and understand the observed tasks, log flights, and exam requirements. Get a copy of United States Hang Gliding Association Incorporated study material for advanced Hang 4 written exam from an observer or the USHGA, This document tells you what other material you should obtain to study for your exam. You can get some of these documents from an observer or instructor. Prepare for and demonstrate the following tasks. All the ones we just talked about: clearance during 360s, advanced landing accuracy, coordinated 360-degree turns, advanced stalls, soar above a low point, altitude gain. Ask the observer to sign off these tasks in your logbook. Fulfill the following flight log requirements. I think these are still the same. Minimum of 250 flights, minimum of 5 flights at each of 5 different sites in intermediate conditions. At least 3 of these sites must be inland, parentheses, thermal sites. Minimum of 80 flying days. At least one 1-hour flight. At least one 30-minute flight in thermal lift with no sustaining ridge lift. Minimum of 75 hours airtime with no more than 25 hours tandem. Of these 75 hours, at least 25 hours must be in thermal conditions with no more than 10 hours tandem. Study for and take the advanced rating exam. Study and understand the operating limitations for an advanced pilot. Enjoy your new well-earned flying status. So, advanced landing accuracy has changed a little, as I said earlier. It's an average of 25, and they have to be average of 25 feet from a spot, 3 different spots, and they have to be in different spots in intermediate conditions. So this is the advanced Hang 4 exam study guide, the official USHPA. So this was revised December 2005. I think it's still accurate. It's online if you want to see the most accurate. I'm just going with what I have printed. What is a wave? So they want you to know what a wave is, and that also, as a side note, what kind of cloud is associated with that. Number 2 is what type of conditions occur in or near cumulus clouds. What type of conditions occur in or near cumulus clouds? Number 2. It has the answers on here. I'm just going to give you the questions. How far downwind from a thunderstorm is turbulence encountered? How are thermals flown? That's kind of a vague question. We just talked about some of the stuff a little bit in the tasks for Hang 4. What are roll, pitch, and yaw? Well, that's in the Hang 1 exam, so I sure as heck hope you know that one. What precautions should be taken in landing high-performance gliders? What is the aspect ratio and how does it affect performance? How is the force of the wind and velocity related? What should be the flying speed in turbulence? What is the difference between a downwind and an upwind turn? Here's the second page, which is the other things you need as far as setup and pre-flight of glider and harness, ground handling glider, hook-in check / hang check, launch procedures, in-flight skills, landing procedure, micrometeorology, description of different launch sites, effect of upwind obstructions, landing area, aerodynamics, lift, airfoil and airflow diagrams, stalls, maneuvers. References are, once again, everything says USHGA, even though it says USHPA at the top. It says USHGA Part 104, Pilot Proficiency Program, USHGA Part 103, FAR Ultralight Vehicles, Part 103. You need to know that really good. USHGA Revocation Reduction of Ratings Policy, Performance Flying by Dennis Pagan, Understanding the Sky by Dennis Pagan, FAR Part 71, Designation for Federal Airways, Low Routes, Controlled Airspace, and Reporting Points. There's about 5 questions on that. So you need to know some general aviation stuff, what altitudes planes fly at, what areas you can and cannot fly in. Sectional charts, first aid course, Red Cross Standard First Aid and Safety Manual. There's an article about first aid for pilots, just the basics that I'll probably cover pretty soon. That's a pretty good article. Articles from Hang Gliding Magazine they recommend for Hang 4. More on Parachutes by Chris Price. I don't think I have that one. And Dealing with Dust Devils by Tom Craich. Sorry, I don't know if I say your name right. Those sound like good articles. I want to find those. I don't have those. Recent information dictates that chutes should be repacked every 6 months, contrary to information in that article. This list is suggested reading and study material. Any additional suggestions will be appreciated. So maybe some have been added over the years. But I think that's about it. And he didn't really talk. Thing about an advanced rating is in every rating they talk about the judgment and maturity, commensurate with the rating. And I think it shouldn't really matter if you have the right judgment and maturity. For any rating should be basically the same, but as an advanced rated pilot, you become more of an example, and so I think at that point, it definitely is a higher standard. As far as you've gotten over your intermediate syndrome. Not that you're going to be lily pure, but that you'll be ready to set an example and be a good pilot for the site and for the other pilots. All right, that's about it. Thanks. Bye.